Okay, so here's what happened. When my mom died 3 years ago from cancer, I got her house. I'm a 28-year-old guy, and it's a pretty simple three-bedroom place which I always kept in good shape. My mom specifically left it to me, which caused some issues with my dad, who's 56. But he seemed to get over it eventually. He remarried last year to a woman named Diane, who's 47. Honestly, I was happy for him at first. It had been 2 years since Mom passed, and everyone deserves a little happiness. I even went to their small wedding and got them a nice honeymoon. Things were fine between us, although me and Diane weren't super tight. Then, a couple of months ago, Dad called, totally freaked out. He'd lost his job because of some budget cuts and they couldn't afford their rent anymore. Diane worked part-time at a shop, but it wasn't enough. They were about to get kicked out. I had to think for a second. My house isn't huge and I really like my space, but he's my dad and I couldn't just let him be homeless. So I said they could stay with me just until they got back on their feet. We agreed on a 3-month limit with the understanding that they would be actively looking for work and a new place. The first few weeks were a little weird, but we made it work. I gave them the master bedroom, I moved into the smaller room, made space in the closets, and even helped with groceries since they were broke. Then, last week, everything changed. I walked in the door and found Diane rearranging my living room furniture. So I asked her what she was up to, and she said she was just trying to make things more practical. I told her, "Hey, this is my house, you know. Let's talk before you start rearranging stuff." She got all huffy, something like, "Well, since we're all living here now, I think I should have a say in how things are set up." I just dropped it, didn't want to fight. But a few days later, I overheard her on the phone bragging about how she and Dad were helping me out by staying here, saying I was barely keeping it together. Let me tell you, I have a good IT job, my mortgage is totally manageable, and I've never, ever asked them for a dime. Things blew up yesterday. I walked in and there's this handwritten bill on the counter. Diane had actually calculated what she thought my fair share of the expenses was: utilities, groceries, and get this, she's charging me $800 for rent. I confronted her and she's like, "You owe us rent. We're 3 adults sharing the place, so you should pay a third." I told her again, this is my house, that they're staying here as a favor, and we all agreed it was temporary. She just rolled her eyes. "Oh, it's not like you bought this place yourself," she said. "Your mom gave it to you. We're family now and family shares." Dad was sitting there the whole time, glued to his phone, pretending he wasn't even there. I didn't say a word, didn't even raise my voice. I just smiled, grabbed the bill, and went to my room. They probably think I'm actually considering their crazy idea. Nope, not anymore. My lawyer's already got this covered, and things are happening. They'll get a rude awakening tomorrow. I'll let you all know when things go down, so update number 1 is in. And wow, 3 days later, this thing just exploded. I really appreciate all the love, but the wheels were already turning, you know? As soon as I got that insane bill, I called my lawyer. She confirmed what a lot of you thought. Since they were just guests, no lease, no paying rent, I could ask them to leave, especially since they were trying to act like they owned the place by sending me that rent demand. We could speed things up. The next day, I was all over it, gathering up proof. Photos of the bill, texts showing we were just doing this temporarily, and emails where my dad admitted it was all short-term. I took a day off work and set up a sheriff's deputy to give them the eviction notice. I booked movers for the next day and rented a storage unit close by. The morning of the eviction, the deputy showed up at 8. Diane opened the door, wearing her robe, totally confused. When she got the papers explaining they had to be out in a day, her face went through like 5 different reactions in a few seconds. "What the hell is this?" she yelled. I just kept it cool and said, "It's a formal notice that you and Dad have to be out of here in 24 hours. Then Dad walked out of the bedroom. "Son, what's going on?" he asked, so I had to tell them it was over. After Diane tried to make me pay rent in my own house, it just wasn't working anymore. I'd let them stay there because I wanted to be nice, and they basically treated me like garbage. Well, Diane went ballistic. "You can't just kick us out," she yelled. "We have rights, we live here." The deputy explained that since they weren't paying rent and didn't have a lease, they didn't get the usual protections for renters in our state. They had to be gone by the next morning. "But where are we supposed to go?" Dad asked, looking totally stunned. I just shrugged. "Honestly, I don't really care anymore. Maybe ask those friends Diane keeps telling everyone about, you know, the ones who think you're helping me out." Diane's tears quickly turned into threats. "Your mother would be so ashamed of you," she screamed. "We're going to sue you for everything." I just said calmly that my lawyer had everything ready, proving they were just temporary guests who tried to claim they owned the place. I was covered legally. Then Dad finally said something, but he wasn't defending me. "You're really putting your own father out on the street after everything I've done for you?" That actually stung. "Everything you've done?" I asked. "Like fight Mom's will." Or sit there while your wife tried to charge me rent in my house? That kind of everything. The next morning, the moving guys showed up. Deanne and Dad barely had anything packed, like they thought I'd cave or something. The movers packed everything up fast, and Diane just followed them around, crying and complaining the whole time. Dad just sat there in the kitchen, shooting me these disappointed glances now and then. I spent the whole afternoon moving stuff. Everything was packed up and taken to the storage unit I'd already paid for a month. I gave Dad the key and the address. I told him his stuff would be safe there for 30 days. After that, he'd have to pay or whatever they do. It was everything. Diane didn't want to leave until the deputy came back to make sure the eviction went down, and he told her she could leave on her own or be escorted out. They finally left around 4 p.m. My phone's been going nuts with texts from Dad, Diane, and even Dad's sister, who apparently got some crazy story fed to her. I blocked Diane and sent Dad a simple text. I told him that when he was ready to say he was sorry and talk without Diane to let me know. I changed the locks this morning. The house feels calm again. A week later, things have gotten way more intense than I thought. It's been a week since they left, and things have escalated in ways I didn't expect. My aunt, Dad's sister, cornered me in the work parking lot on Monday. She was pissed, saying I was being cruel to my dad when he was going through a hard time. Your father lost his job, he has no place to go, and you're just sitting pretty in a house you didn't even earn, she said, her voice getting louder. I explained what happened, including how they tried to make me pay rent in my own house. She just brushed it off, saying, Diane was just trying to teach you a lesson. The worst part? I found out from my cousin later that Dad and Diane were staying with my aunt. Yeah, so she tossed them out after just 3 days because Diane was all up in my stuff moving furniture around and using my pricey face creams without even a word. The whole thing was just too much, you know? Then on Wednesday, I get home and there's Diane standing on my porch with this giant folder. She flashes this super fake smile and says she wants to talk things over. Her solution? A home sharing deal where I'd basically let them live there forever in exchange for them managing the place. She actually said, "You're young, you don't get the value of family assets. We're just trying to protect you." I straight up told her to get lost. When she wouldn't budge, I called the cops. While we were waiting, she starts filming me, saying I was harassing her. When the officers finally showed up, she tried to tell them that her unstable stepson was locking her out. Luckily, I had copies of the eviction papers. The cops had to escort her off the property after they explained she didn't have a legal leg to stand on. The next day, I got a letter from some lawyer claiming I evicted them improperly and wanted me to let them back in and cough up some cash. My lawyer assured me it was a total waste of paper. Then, things really went downhill online. Diane was on social media, posting in all these community groups, saying I was mentally unstable and squatting in my parents' place. Several relatives started messaging me, asking what was really going on and telling me to respect my elders. It was the most unsettling thing. Last Friday, I got a call from a neighbor. Dad and Diane were at my house with a locksmith, and I was at work. I freaked out and called the cops, then sped home. The locksmith was gone by the time I got there. Apparently, he'd asked for proof of ownership, which they couldn't give him. The police showed up right after, but they were already gone too. After that, I put in security cameras and filed for a restraining order. My lawyer thought it would be approved since they tried to break in. What hurt the most? Learning Dad's been going around saying I abandoned him when he needed me most, and that Mom would be devastated to see how I'd turned out. Oh, Honeyho didn't mention them trying to charge me rent to live in my own place. Fast forward 3 weeks, and almost a month later, this whole mess is finally starting to fade. The restraining order was approved last week. Dad and Diane can't come within 500 feet of me, my home, or my job for 6 months. The judge was really bothered by the locksmith thing and how they kept trying to claim the house. I also found out something pretty upsetting about Dad's old job. One of his former coworkers reached out after hearing about everything. He told me Dad wasn't laid off because of budget cuts, like he said. He hinted that there was some inappropriate stuff going on at work, which led to him being fired. He didn't go into details, and honestly, there are some things I'm better off not knowing. It all suddenly made sense. It wasn't just a temporary thing with Dad and Diane. They were plotting to move in for good. That rent bill wasn't some random thing. It was all part of their scheme to make themselves permanent fixtures, not just visitors. I knew for sure when I was cleaning the guest room. I stumbled across Diane's notes, hidden away. They were all about getting a permanent place to live, stuff like chipping in money to claim part ownership, and even looking into those crazy squatters' rights. There was even a note about using emotional dependence to make it harder to kick them out. I texted my dad one last time. I wrote, I found Diane's notes about your plans for my house. Don't contact me again unless you're ready to apologize. His reply. You've always been ungrateful. Your mother spoiled you rotten. That was it. 28 years, gone in one nasty text. My cousin later told me they'd hightailed it to another state to live with Diane's sister. Apparently they spun some tale about me threatening them and wrecking their stuff, total lies. The best part? Diane's whole social media campaign to paint me as some kind of home invader backfired spectacularly. People who knew the real story started chiming in with their own stories about how entitled she is. She shut down her whole thing pretty quick after that. My aunt even called to apologize later. She'd seen Diane's true colors when they stayed with her for a bit. She confessed she'd totally fallen for their lies and felt awful for jumping down my throat before I even got a word in. I've changed all the locks, beefed up the security, and made sure my legal stuff is up to date. It's quiet again in the house, a good quiet. I moved back into my own bedroom and put the furniture back where I want it feels like mine again. There are times I get this wave of sadness about how things went down with my dad, but then I remember how fast he sided with Diane and her crazy plans. He didn't even hesitate. Some relationships, you just can't fix them, no matter how long you've known the person. Sometimes family is just a word for people you happen to be related to, not people who actually care about you. I really appreciate all the support you guys gave me. Your advice helped me hold my own when I really needed it.